Hi, and welcome to my talk on the topic of AWS management tools and governance. You may be a system admin, you may be worried about information security, you may be looking into managing all the cloud at scale while still being agile and fast. So welcome to staying in control while moving fast. Who am I and why should you care? My name is Darko. As you can see, I go by different spellings here. I am a developer advocate for AWS working in Berlin, Germany. I originally come from Serbia. I've been working for AWS for the past a bit more than 4 years. And one fun fact about me, I've changed 5 countries in the last 7 years. So fun times. Let's move on. Just quickly cover the agenda. So what are we going to be talking about today? I'm going to take you through our customer's journey, or where our customers are headed now, where they are currently now, how their process looks. I will be talking about enabling you to do things at scale. I will talk about how you can provision things at scale. And finally, how you can operate things at scale. And hopefully we'll have some time for a demo and, just a couple of takeaways. So where are our customers headed? Which part of their cloud journey are they in right now? As we work with thousands of customers across the broad spectrum of industries, we see customers in, let's say, 3 boxes of their current cloud environment. We have customers who are building cloud native, customers that are using all the built-in tools to the cloud to adopt the scalability, elasticity, and all the little tools and benefits of the cloud that provides. These customers adopt serverless, adopt microservices, adopt a lot of fully managed services out there. So in essence, what this gives them, it gives them much faster deployment times, much more deployment, and much less failures. In essence, a lot of things happening at once. Secondly, we have customers who are moving from on-prem to the cloud, and typically we see customers having thousands of their own applications that they wish to migrate. They manage 10 to 100 of ISVs or third-party products along with the plethora of licensing they come in with. But at the same time, they also want to keep a certain percentage, rough 20%, on-premise with an eventual retiring as they go along. And there's customers that don't want to modernize everything, so we have customers that are basically having a certain percentage of their workloads being SaaS or are migrating towards containers and microservices. And what this brings in is a much more complex thing that you need to way to monitor, when you need to operate. You have to do much more things at scales than from a standard, let's say, classical infrastructure. So you heard me say a lot of things here, and this can be quite jarring. Different states, a lot of numbers, a lot of moving parts, and with a lot of agility. And as these customers trying to adopt, the thinking was that you may lose control, right? And if you keep control, you may lose your high velocity or your ability to innovate. Well, this is where tooling and best practices come in. AWS offers a set of management and governance services or tools that can help you improve your agility while still maintain governance control, or help you move fast while still staying in control. Because ideally, these tools will help you, unclog provisioning bottlenecks or support your innovation, which is super important, improve your security and compliance posture, and enhance your operations, and finally, reduce costs. Well, so we want customers to have both of these things. How can you do that? I mentioned a few services. Well, where are those services and how can I find them, you may be thinking? Well, here they are, right? So AWS has a nice little group called Management and Governance within the web console, and you can find all of these services. And in essence, we like to split them into 3 categories. They're not split there, but we like to think they are. Number 1, enabling your builders for speed and built-in governance, right? You start giving you all the enablement tools for you. Provisioning applications, or the ability to provision applications and resources that meet your policies and are secure and are by standardized and all the stuff. And finally, last but not least, operating your environment with speed and governance and at this cloud scale, because operations at cloud scale are much different than operations on 7 servers you have in a back room somewhere, right? So with these, you can kind of have agility and control with the proper tooling and practices in place. So, but before I continue, what is governance? I've been throwing around the term governance a lot, and people have been asking me, so Darko, you mentioned governance. What is governance? And a very smart person told me, thank you, Brian, that governance is what you have committed to do. Compliance is the measurement. So in essence, governance is the policies and related things inside of your org like standards, guidelines, or rules for getting things done, right? So you have decided to do those rules. Governance is the things you have decided to do. You may not have decided to adopt some other things, right? So, okay, enough about terming. I just wanted to make sure that you understand what this is. Let's have a look at those services. So first, the enablement part, right? How can we enable you to do a lot of things in the cloud? How to get you started in the best way possible? And also, how can we help you keep an eye on some crucial things? Budgets, anyone. So first of all, every cloud scale workload or architecture or whatever requires a multi-account structure, right? Well, at a certain scale. As you grow up, you definitely need to look into multi-account. So how does this work, right? So as customers start to use AWS at scale, right, you want to follow some AWS best practices to isolate your resources and workloads into multiple AWS accounts for categorization and blast radius reduction. So you need environments that are very governed in order to manage these multiple AWS accounts you own and to maximize governance and control and at the end of the day reduce complexity while still having all of these controls in place and security. How do you start? Well, first thing, you need a landing zone. What is a landing zone? Is that little product you have? Yes and no. Landing zone is this basically a cloud environment starting point that can be used to deploy your workloads and applications and different solutions, right? There's a few ways you can deploy a landing zone. I'll get into that a bit later. Once you have that landing zone, and that landing zone should have things such as guardrails, right? Guardrails are basically ways you can enforce or, let's say, guide your users to do things in a certain way. They should not be gates per se, but they're basically control policies that kind of say, hey, maybe you should do it this way and not that way. They can be both they can be both detective and preventive. So they can just detect things that are out of compliance, and they can also prevent some things, which are in essence gates. Finally, when you provision accounts in this multi-account structure, they need to be provisioned in a compliant way, in a standard way. Once you provision accounts, every account should be provisioned in a, let's say, have the same amount of standards and same amount of compliance things that it requires. Do not go willy-nilly really deploying accounts left and right in their own way. So you have to do it in a very standardized, governed way. And moving on to centralized identity and access is we need to have a way for provide a centralized access or a centralized identity provider such as Microsoft AD, IAM, whatever identity provider you want to use to access all the accounts. This gives your administrators a single entry point into everything. So this is quite important to do this in a manageable way. And again, those tools that kind of help you enable these things are, first and foremost, Control Tower is the service that helps you deploy multi-account structures. Along with Control Tower, you have organizations with work which enables you to create organizational units and add control policies to those things. Controlling costs and licensing such as budgets and license manager, and private marketplace enables you to limit access to marketplace to certain users. And my favorite tool, the well-architected tool, it helps you improve your architecture over time. And it is actually based on the well-architected framework, which relies on 5 pillars: security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and operational excellence. You need to really check out well-architected if you have not already. So it's a tool now, and you can also get that from your fellow SAs. So before I continue, I want to talk about a customer of ours. So TF1 is a French customer. It's the most watched channel in Europe. They have 22% market share in France. They have a bunch of premium, regional, and themed channels. Their VOD or video on demand service has over 27 million subscribers with 1.8 billion views in 2019. And they have also a bunch of divisions and different websites, which in turn brings their complexity quite up. So their goal was to reduce their data center footprint, gain this flexibility, the flexibility within the cloud, but at the same time stay secure. Back in 2019, they started migration, and their goal was to deploy in the first half of this year of 2020. So they used Landing Zone, this solution, to provide multiple teams access to AWS in a very secure and scalable manner. The best part of this, that this has actually reduced their deployment time of their workloads from several weeks, which used to be on premises, to just several hours right now on the cloud. So in turn, This reduction of time has given them a lot of times for these, playing around with setups, sandbox environments, giving developers and engineers ability to test things out, and most important, keep on innovating. So this is what moves it forward. Okay, let's step back and let's have a look how this multi-account structure should look like. Wow, that's complex. Okay, so there's a lot of things here. It's a very busy slide, but this is how it should look like. A rough outline. We see developer sandbox accounts, we see security accounts, we see our everlasting log archive, production accounts, shared accounts, team shared accounts, connections to on-prem, a lot of different things. You see, this is how it should work. You see how network should flow, you see how logs should flow, you see all the logs funneled in one place. Wow, that's a lot of different things happening. I mentioned organizations and organization units. Check this out. This is the prescriptive way how you should do organizations on AWS, how you should divide your OUs and accounts within those OUs, right? This is basically what we believe is the ideal end state when it comes to organization for a multi-account configuration on AWS. And actually, absolutely, we believe that all customers at scale will achieve this in the fullness of time, right? But that's a bit overwhelming. You've seen a lot of boxes, you've seen a lot of lines, and too much text for my taste. How do we enable you to do all of this? Do you just go on the console and start clicking and hope for the best? Well, there's a few services that can help you with that. I mentioned these, but we have Control Tower. Control Tower is, as I said, the service to help you deploy multi-account strategies. It helps you deploy accounts, multiple accounts. It actually heavily relies on AWS organizations to create those organization units, create those service control policies within those OUs, and all the things you require for that, such as setting up guardrails, setting up identity providers. For example, you may want to block a certain account, let's say a production account, doesn't need to run resources in different regions. Well, you can use organization and control policies to, let's say, prevent specific regions from being utilized at all within a specific account. So a lot of different things can be done this, and this is where you should start. If you want something like the previous two slides, these are the two services to help you kick off a lot of these different things. So absolutely do check them out, and as they will enable you to start to do things at scale properly. Speaking of at scale, let's talk about provisioning at scale. So what is provisioning? Is somebody racking and stacking a server provisioning? Absolutely. Is provisioning a mailbox provisioning? Yeah. But when we talk about the cloud, it's much, much more. And especially when we talk about automated provisioning, right? So let's have a look. In this scenario, automated provisioning will look something like this. So to increase the speed of your business and giving everybody the right tools at the right time for them to work with, you could have somebody like let's say, we call this person an author here. So this person takes all the services, all the complexity and the depth and availability of services on AWS, makes these self-service products out of them, like SageMaker or websites or development environment or pipelines or whatnot. This person makes them a self-service box, right? Administrators then take these services and provision them or tag them or assign them to different users, groups, developers, business users, it doesn't matter. Then you get a set of governed, pre-approved IT services, which can basically be cherry-picked by developers, to get pipelines or developer accounts, or for business users to get splash pages, marketing polls or whatnot, or let's say data scientists they get a SageMaker notebook to do some data science on them, right? So this is how it would look, automated provisioning. Now, the tools behind all of these are a few things. Absolutely, we have CloudFormation, our IAC or infrastructure as code tool. We have OpsWorks, we have Service Catalog and Marketplace for developer part provisioning. And also for business provisioning, we again rely on Service Catalog and Marketplace, and I'll get into that in a minute to explain. So how do we provision things at scale? Well, how do we provision resources, virtual machines, databases, users, blah, blah, blah? Well, we use code. We use infrastructure as code to define our infrastructure and deploy it to the cloud in a, let's say, safe, repeatable, and predictable manner, which in turn brings us to CloudFormation. It's a service I love to talk about. This service takes your code in the form of JSON and YAML templates, and the code you enter there represents your resources, such as virtual machines, S3 buckets, databases, users, whatever. It represents those things as resources with their set of parameters. You take this template called a stack. Well, this template creates a stack, and you pass it on to CloudFormation. CloudFormation does a bunch of API magic in the backend, creates those resources for you, and actually manages them. Make sure it makes sure if you want to remove them or update them, it keeps track of where they are right now. So CloudFormation is the essence to provision anything at scale in a reliable, governed way. But let's say you have things not running within AWS, because CloudFormation in essence manages AWS resources. Let's say you want to deploy a GitHub repo, or create a user on OpsGenie, or a dashboard on Datadog, or you have a line of business application that deploys unicorns, right? If something has an API call to do something, CloudFormation Registry can help you. So CloudFormation Registry is basically an open approach to managing external resources. It gives you the ability to import or introduce support for any external resource you wish to create with CloudFormation. So it requires, has its own separate CLI. Basically, you create these things inside of your CloudFormation resource, and you can use them immediately within your template. Pretty cool. Pretty exciting opportunities, especially for SaaS partners who deploy their software to AWS users as well. Now, building on top of CloudFormation is Service Catalog. Now, this is the self-service part of it. Imagine you have a bunch of AWS CloudFormation templates that create a bunch of different resources. To provision these things to proper users, you can use things such as Service Catalog, which is basically a front-end way to provision portfolios which contain products to your end users. Your data scientist wants a SageMaker notebook, and you do not wish to give them the permission to manually do that. You can go to Service Catalog, click a button, and have it all provisioned for them, right? Pretty cool. It has also like a Jira Service Desk integration for people who do that. There's a bunch of reference implementation already available, and you can share portfolios among thousands of accounts. Building on top of this as well is the marketplace. If you ever wanted to get third-party software and, let's say, reference implementations of that third-party software on AWS, both free, paid, and bring your own license approach, you can use Marketplace. There's over 7,000 listings on the Marketplace to get third-party software, and it's pretty cool. Now, to introduce control a bit more to this thing, we have Private Marketplace, where you can limit the scope and visibility of Marketplace items to your customers or to the users of said products. So you can, in essence, create a customized private catalog of pre-approved products. On top of that, if procurement is very important, especially when talking about procurement and legal playing a role in governance. You can integrate Marketplace with tools such as Coupa and Ariba, so that operations can subscribe, but also set up auto notification to procurement, or even have a permission-based model on what it can procure or not. And finally, to control or curb those costs, we have tag inheritance, which basically improves the tagging of resources created by Marketplace, so you can kind of much more understand or manage the cost inheritance of a certain product being launched through the Marketplace. Really useful feature, especially because once using some software on the Marketplace can get a bit pricey. Okay, moving on from the provisioning part of it to something else. What is the next part? Operations, right? So everybody likes creating or provisioning new things. It's fun. It's fun to click around the console. It's fun to code some things. It's really good. But your workload spends most of its life in this phase, in the phase where you operate them, right? So you operate your workload, you do day-to-day stuff on them, look at metrics, understand those metrics, patch, reboot, upgrade, log in, audit, troubleshoot, whatnot, right? So there's so much things to operate. But let's actually operate with agility, get it? But we'll still staying in control. So there's a few aspects to operating with agility. First, customers, or you, want to monitor and get visibility into how their resources and applications are being used and how they are actually performing, right? So you cannot measure what you do not know. So you have to have observability against your resources. Next, you want to make sure everything is auditable, right? Everything from how your resources are configured, to which users are accessing them, to what policies are being enforced, or to what changes are being made. So you want to make sure you know that. Thirdly, if you want to take operational actions at scale, you want to maybe some group resources in a logical group. You want to execute those tasks safely, repeatably, and in a very visible way, and at the end of the day, at scale, right? So you want to have it as automated as possible. And last but not least, you want to continue to optimize and analyze, reduce costs, improve your efficiency, and improve your security posture as you go along. So a couple of tools that can help you along the way. Well, first and foremost, the visibility or observability aspect, we have CloudWatch. It actually helps improve your visibility into all of your resources. It can collect, visualize, analyze, correlate data points across silos to make sure your applications, backend processes, websites are running smoothly, right? To audit a few things, we have both CloudTrail and Config. CloudTrail is this amazing tool that gives you the visibility into which API calls have been run on top of your database account, who has ran it, where from, so you can get a lot of audit capabilities by understanding who did what when. Config tracks your configuration across time, is able to automate some actions. I'll get into config in a bit. Systems Manager is, I think, my favorite tools when it comes to operations. It's like this bag of tools full of bells and whistles that do a lot of things, from actually automating some actions to patching to session management to dashboards. A lot of different things allow you to work with Systems Manager, basically take operational actions against them, and I'll show this later on. And finally, to optimize and reduce your cost and improve security posture, we have things such as Trusted Advisor, Cost and Usage Explorer, and Cost Explorer, which can help you maybe understand what kind of reserved instances you should use. Are there any possibilities for anything like that? All right, so observability is a key to success. And there's been a lot of talk about observability and how important it is, especially on cloud when operating microservices. You might have been hearing a lot about this term observability. Well, Baron Schwartz from Vivid Cortex has a great definition for observability. So monitoring tells you whether a system is working. Observability lets you ask why it isn't working. So, important drivers for observability or for a need for observability: microservices architecture, ephemeral and dynamic fleets, but there's a whole lot more obvious ones like, going serverless, everything's going, in very granular control. So we want to have to understand things in a fast approach, how they're looking, what's their current status, are they improving, etc., etc. So the key service to observability on AWS is definitely CloudWatch. CloudWatch collects metrics, logs, and events emitted from AWS, from within AWS services. So there's a extensive amount of integration between AWS services and the telemetry they emit towards CloudWatch. Now, once you have all of those things collected, you need to find a way to monitor them by creating dashboards, understanding having some anomaly detection, or even some event rules, right? If something certainly happens, once something has happened or an event is triggered, you want to act on it. So there's ways to automate actions or trigger emails for lack of a better thing, or even actually trigger actions through Systems Manager by running a playbook automatically if something happens. And last but not least, we really want to analyze the data we have by using metric math or log insights to get some things a bit more clear to us. And last but not least, CloudWatch would not be where it is without its tight integration with a lot of partners such as Splunk, New Relic, Sumo Logic, Datalog, and Dynatrace, as we all work together to provide the information coming from CloudWatch to these other services to help you, have even further observability. I just want to mention another feature from CloudWatch called ServiceLens. ServiceLens is a service that basically, it's a fully managed solution that helps you visualize and analyze the health, performance, and availability of your serverless and containerized application in one place. So this gives you all of observability data in one place in the context of your application, surfaces key insights such as alarms, requests, latencies at a quick glance, and dynamically updates these views that change when your application changes. So automated configuration, compliance, and auditing. This brings us to AWS Config. Config is a service that enables you to assess, audit, and evaluate configuration of your AWS resources. There's a couple of key aspects to this. Config continuously monitors, records your AWS resource details and configuration. So it will continuously understand the state of your resources. If a security group has changed, Config will know about it. once something has happened, you can set up alarms or actions to trigger if something has happened. So let's say that security group has a port change for SSH or an IP address change for SSH. You might want to have config to automatically remediate or notify you if something has happened. But it also, in essence, can be used for auditing by giving you a view into change management, for example. Last but not least, a central point where you manage your operations. Single pane of glass thing approach, Systems Manager. So Systems Manager is this jack of all trades tool. It's a bag of tools, I like to call it, that gives you accessibility or gives you access to a lot of different things that can help you operate your account, from patching to accessing systems through Bastion hosts or session management, to having an operational dashboard, to executing playbooks that do some certain line of actions. So what's important about Systems Manager, it's both on-prem and in the cloud, because it's run an open source agent. So in essence, you can run this on an EC2 instance and on your Raspberry Pi back at home. Super useful. It has so many services just to cover in one slide, but from parameter store to session manager to patch management to automation to state management, all the different things within Systems Manager are super important. All right. Couple of takeaways I really want to mention. So I've taken you through a bunch of services, right? So I've talked about set of 15 services, a set of innovations, and see how can these things help you. How can we enable you to set up stuff, right? Such as multiple account structures with all the bells and whistles built in. Having a firm control on the way you provision resources, accounts, applications, workloads, whatnot, in a very predictable, compliant, and repeatable way. And finally, operating everything at scale can be complex, but with a plethora of tools and utilities and services at your side, they make it so much easier by giving you the observability through CloudWatch or the ability to act at scale through tools such as System Manager. In turn, all of these things should help you achieve this amazing agility, all while staying in control. Get it? So, but before I go, I just want to mention all of these partners and community of our partner network and these technology partners. All of these play a pivotal role within the governance and management of your database accounts. So you will find a lot of these partners tightly integrated with our services. At the other part, you will find all of these partners as well on the marketplace. If you wish to launch a certain set of software or of services from you, they're all available on the marketplace. So we really couldn't do what we do without these things. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure delivering this session. I hope you really enjoyed it. And I really hope you enjoyed the rest of the virtual summit. If you have any feedback, please feel free to shoot them towards my social media. I will be on the lookout for them. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again.